Hi, my name is Claire, and today I'm going to be taking you through the Oyster Garden. So my site is located on Vancouver Island in the district of Ucluelet. And I selected this site because it's currently an unnamed, underused green space, but it's really accessible and I think it has a lot of potential. I chose this site because it has these really unique sensorial qualities, and because it's so close to the ocean, you really feel this kind of natural life force when you're there. And even though there's a little bit of industry around, like everything in Ucluelet, it's pretty laid back. So that being said, the pandemic has really put health and well-being on the forefront of everybody's consciousness, and I wanted to take this project as an opportunity to address something taboo that I hadn't really seen done before, and that's to talk about preterm birth rates and how they're on the rise in BC, as well as how 10 to 25% of women experience postpartum depression after giving birth, as well as on top of all that, Vancouver Island is experiencing the highest rate of population growth in BC. So my solution here was really thinking about how there's research that shows that women who spend time in green space have better birth outcomes, and also how nature is being used as a treatment for depression. So that brings me to my design statement, which is I want to design a garden aimed at improving the health and well-being of infants and their families, both pre and postnatal, through the use of restorative West Coast inspired design. And I think here it's really possible to make a place that's comfortable for families, that increases their exposure to nature, but that also improves their emotional state. This was very early on in my design process, and I was drawn to these kind of amorphic, more natural shapes. But even after going through my sketches and figuring out what kind of experiences I wanted, I was still struggling to figure out how to turn this into a plan. So that's when I started looking at the things around me, which was shells. And I used shells and the form of shells to pull out various motifs. And I was really drawn to the oyster one in particular because, one, it's beautiful, but also two, the meaning behind a shell just really spoke to me. And we know that the shell is a symbol for the womb and fertility, but I also began to see it as something that was wise and enduring and protective, which is what mothers do for their babies and what I also wanted to do through this garden. So with that in mind, I ended up pursuing this formal garden structure with these strong architectural edges, but emulated the interior surface of an oyster shell with these undulating plant masses, and then tried to reinforce that sense of security and enclosure with trees on a more structural grid pattern. So if you zoom out a little bit, you can see how the perspective would fit into the surrounding context. But I would like to take you through some of the specific elements and programmatic elements that I've come up with for this garden. So first of all, I was just thinking about the different layers, and then also using these quick diagrams to think about, okay, the opportunities I had. So where I wanted to put energy and stimulation, but where it might be better suited for rest, and how that actually plays out with the landscape and the views and the temperature there. So for this first area, you would enter off the street, go down a ramp, and you come into this, you would descend down into this open gathering space. And the reason I designed it like this is because families, when they have kids, it can be quite isolating because places are uncomfortable and constrained. So I wanted to have a space with flexible seating where people could meet up. And I have this stroller parking lot there that's specifically for all your baby stuff. So you can go and you can enjoy the space, and using the plants with these kind of warm, earthy tones and yellows to really welcome people and make them want to stay. And then if you go through the path down here, this brings you into this sensorial playground. And the issue I'm addressing here is parents that are experiencing postpartum depression can often, they have trouble bonding and they have trouble forming what's called secure attachments. So I figured if they had a place for infants and parents to look at stuff and to engage with the natural landscape, that could be really helpful. And I was also thinking about how I could use the larger landscape around me to bring those elements in. So that would be through the use of these small little rocks that you can stand on, or this globe water feature that you can touch, but it's not a drowning hazard. And then also taking these kind of structural, almost tree-like things that evoke like the wild West Coast, but make them small and make them a place where you can play peekaboo, because we all know kids love peekaboo. So I call that the peekaboo forest. And it just really reminded me of when you're a child and everything feels so big and amazing and wonderful, and how gardens can really be a place to escape from your daily life and enter a different world, and how that in itself is really restorative. And the last space I would like to walk you through, so there's 2 ramps, and they come up to this elevated lookout platform that faces the ocean. And while the other 2 spaces are quite stimulating and engaging, this one is specifically for rest. So it uses a lot of blues, it uses fragrance, it has nice deciduous trees and also evergreen shrubs. So it's nice all year round. It's just supposed to be a very calming place. So I picture it for maybe an expecting mother who just needs some time to clear her head. She has this nice biophilic bench that she can just kind of lean into, and it's a moment for her mind to rest, but also her body to rest. And I just think it could be, yeah, a really nice element. And just to show a bit more about how I'm thinking about this topographically, you can see here that I have this depressed area that is where the sensorial playground is. So you have a kid standing on the rock, these big undulating plant masses. And then in this view, you can see a bit more of the flexible seating area, and also how I've been thinking about using the tile pattern that I've tried to put through the space as a way to also incorporate runnels and manage the water on site. So trying to balance some of the programmatic elements with the ecosystem requirements. And coming to my final concept, I think you can really see how the form has changed and how I've worked through a lot of different ideas, but I think my intention has pretty much stayed the same throughout this process, and it was really fun to explore this. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts.